What's going on YouTube? So in the push to get more and more electric vehicles on the market, many manufacturers are making completely separate models that are totally different from the rest of their gas-powered lineups. Mercedes is also doing that with most of their EVs, but at the same time they are also electrifying established vehicles as well. And that's what we're standing next to right now, the all-new EQB, which is based off of the gas-powered GLB. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and jump right in and see if this is the electric SUV for you. Alright, so let's get started here with the exterior. Now, just because this is, somewhat related to the GLB model doesn't mean you've got exactly the same exterior design. Mercedes has put that special EQ touch on this model to make it look, very related to the EQS, the EQE, all those new electric sedans that Mercedes is putting out right now. The main thing you're going to notice when we're looking at the front design is going to be a completely different grille. So as you can see, we've got this full black finish here, a new shape on board. We've got a kind of a thin chrome that surrounds the outside edge, a humongous Mercedes emblem, and then the bottom of the fascia here does look a little different as well. And then the lighting is another distinguishing element of this front end design. We've got this light bar effect. Again, just like their other EQ models, it kind of gives you that familial resemblance to those. It goes all the way across and runs into this daytime running light and turn signal indicator that goes down like this. And then as far as the headlights, of course, as you'd expect for Mercedes, we do have standard LED headlights. We do have the projector style for the low beam, and then it's going to be a reflector on the high beam. Now, with a lot of electric vehicles, you get really weird and funky design elements, but I do like that Mercedes has made the EQB look a lot more traditional. One of those aspects is the wheel designs. So you do have a standard 18-inch alloy. What we have on board on this model is a 19-inch alloy. And basically they add just kind of subtle details that make you know this is electric. One of those things is going to be these little blue accents you notice inside of this very traditional looking alloy wheel, which I think looks quite nice. Now as we move above here, we've got a very small EQB badge right there. And then taking a look up here at our mirrors, we've got all the features on board. So that means we've got blind spot monitoring, power folding, auto dimming, and heating.
All right, guys, so now we're at the side of the all-new EQB, and you're going to notice here a very similar design to what you would see in a GLB. Actually, I'm pretty sure almost nothing has changed. You're looking at 184.4 inches in length, which is going to be the same as the GLB, and for your styling elements, it's going to have a very boxy, squared-off design. We have some chrome down here at the bottom, chrome around the window surrounds, as well as chrome roof rails up here at the top. Now, working our way around to the rear design of the EQB, we are going to have, I guess, more of a departure for the rear design than you see in the front or the side, because we do have a very signature Mercedes electric look to the back. And what I mean by that is we're going to have the full-length LED taillights that you see in products like the EQS, the new EQS SUV coming up. It's going to have a very signature Mercedes electric look to it. The taillights themselves are going to be full LED, as I just mentioned. You do have the LED brake light, turn signal indicator, as well as reverse light, and all of your accenting is LED. We have an exposed wiper right here. Then dropping down, we have some EQB branding. All of this is going to be a matte black finish, and you will notice that, of course, we don't have exposed exhaust outlets. This is an electric vehicle after all, but we do have some accenting to kind of look like exposed exhaust, and Mercedes has not released the official towing figures for the EQB, if it will be able to tow at all. Now, being an electric vehicle, I want to go ahead and mention your charge port. So it's going to be located here on the passenger side of the rear. If we pop that open, you will notice it's actually a really large opening here, and this is going to be your charge port. I want to briefly mention the battery capacity. You're looking at 66.5 kilowatt hours for your battery capacity. You can charge at speeds up to 110 kilowatts, which means you can go from 10 to 80% in as little as 31 minutes. But more on the range and all that coming up in the test drive of this EQB. Now it's time to talk about your warranty and safety information for the EQB. So for your safety information, Mercedes is including a few of the systems as standard equipment. So that's going to be forward emergency braking and pedestrian detection, and auto high beam headlamps and lane keeping assist, and adaptive cruise control will be available on this model. Now, as far as your warranty information, typical Mercedes warranty, 4-year, 50,000 mile basic and powertrain. Well guys, that's going to wrap up the EQB on the outside. Now let's go ahead and check out the interior before we take it out on a spin and see what this EQB is all about.
So walking up to this EQB, of course you do have a smart entry system. This is going to be included standard on the exclusive trim level. And to get inside, just grab behind the handle and we'll unlock the door and fold out the mirrors. Now getting started here with the interior, I don't have the full list of official interior color and material choices for this US spec version of the EQB. That being said, what you are looking at right here is the macchiato beige color scheme all throughout the cabin. Now as far as the seats themselves, we actually have full manual adjusting seats on board with this model. That, of course, is not the typical spec. That is because of COVID part shortages that some of these models have been equipped with manual seats. You do have a credit for that on your sticker as well. Let's go ahead and look around the rest of the interior. So we do have a nice leather material all throughout the armrest area. We have a soft touch plastic along the top with a stitching detail. We have a kind of faux carbon fiber trim, and we also have 3-stage heated seats as standard equipment. You can give ventilation as an option. The windows are going to be one-touch auto up and down. As we go to the upper dash, all soft touch plastic, more of that trim through there. And down here on your lower panel, you will notice this is going to be a hard touch plastic with kind of a faux aluminum look, and then there's going to be ambient lighting running all throughout here, as well as many of the other panels inside of the cabin. Now start it up, you do retain the traditional button. Now, as you're going to see through a lot of this interior review, it is very similar to the GLB, which of course is kind of the foundation of the EQB. And one of those elements is going to be this right here. We have our dual 10.25-inch display system on board. This is going to be standard equipment on the EQB. As you can see, it is slightly different though. We do have some special graphics for showing you the percentage of power you're using on the electric motor. And then of course this is fully customizable just like it is in any Mercedes model. A head-up display is also going to be available. As we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got that typical Mercedes design, nice leather-wrapped material. It is going to be manual tilt and telescoping. Heating is an available option as well. But like I was saying, one of the big benefits, I think, of the EQB is that it retains really all the same functionality as the GLB's interior. So let's take a look at the storage. Inside of our center console here, we've got a kind of narrow but nice and deep center console. It does have a felt lining in it, and we've got a couple USB ports. This is still going to be plenty big for our coupons to fit, and just about anything you need to fit inside. Up in front of that, you got your 2 cup holders, and we do also have a another storage area right there in the front with a 3rd USB port and a 12-volt outlet. Now up here on the steering wheel, this is where your shifter is going to be. It's column mounted. You're just going to push down for drive, press up for reverse. And when you go into reverse, you are going to see this 360-degree camera system pop up. On your upper end models, we've got the Pinnacle version today. That's the top trim level. As you can see, that's what that's going to look like. Nice and crisp. You do have your different angles that you could choose between as well. and then just press the end of the stock for park. You do continue to have an electronic parking brake over here on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. Now in the middle of the center console, of course, you've got your Mercedes touch controller. This can control the infotainment system in addition to the screen itself being a touch screen. You do continue to have drive modes over here. And then on this side, you've got your volume knob for the audio system. So there are two different sound systems. With the Pinnacle version, we have the standard Burmester sound system, and we'll go ahead and give that a sample right now. Yeah, as you'd expect for a Burmester sound system, the overall quality is quite nice. So let's rise above here to our climate controls. Once again, you'll notice, the versatility from the GLB continues here because a lot of electric vehicles, hide the climate controls up in a touchscreen or whatnot. This just retains a nice traditional, very high quality metal toggle for you to adjust the temperature. Refreshingly good and simple. Then, of course, you've got your three big vents right there that do change color when you adjust those temperatures. And let's take a look at our infotainment system. So this is running the latest version of the MBUX software. Like I said, it is going to be 10 1/4 inches over here on this side. And as far as the features that you can expect on board, you do have standard Apple CarPlay and standard Android Auto. You do also have a built-in navigation system, and you can option on the augmented reality navigation system if you want. Now rising up above, we do have a frameless auto-dimming mirror. And up on the roof, you'll find the available panoramic sunroof. Now, the nice thing about this on the EQB is what you're looking at right now. Well, now you're looking at it. It's that the front panel can open up. A lot of electric vehicles, as you probably know, have panoramic sunroofs, but they don't open up. But this one here does retain the opening ability for this front panel.
Alright guys, I'm in the rear seat of the all-new Mercedes Benz EQB. So as far as this rear area is concerned, as you might have seen in the front of the vehicle, there's not going to be a ton of differences as compared to something like a regular GLB because, well, of course, this is pretty much the same vehicle except it's electric. Now, with that being said, we don't have US specs finalized for the rear seat area space-wise, so I don't have those exact figures. That said, the Mercedes GLB, which I said is very, very similar to this, has 38.1 inches of legroom, 39 inches of headroom. So there's a lot of space. We just reviewed that GLB not long ago, and I think this has the exact same space figures. There's lots of room. I'm 5'9". The seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", and as you can see, I have lots and lots of space between my knees and the seat back, and my feet can slide up underneath the seat. I will say, though, these rear seats are very hard. So hopefully you like a firm rear seat because there's not going to be much give to these back here. Now, as far as some of your features, here in the center we do have vents. I assume these are going to be standard equipment on every single EQB. Then if we drop below that, you will have this little area. I also assume this is for rear climate controls. This particular model does not have that equipment on that. However, if we drop below that, we have a household style outlet as well as two USB-C type ports. Then if we fold center armrest down, you will notice that we do have a nice armrest unobstructed by cup holders that we can just pop out here, and they do easily come out. And then if you look over at your door trim, we have a nice one. We have leatherette across the entire upper part with some stitching details, leatherette on all the center part as well as on the armrest portion. We also do have a large bottle holder down in the door trim. I also want to point out, though, that heated rear seats are not going to be offered on the EQB. Now walking up to our tailgate area for the EQB, we do have a standard power tailgate offered on all of the models, and you can open it a few different ways. So you can just push in the Mercedes emblem, which is actually quite cool just to push that emblem and have the tailgate open, or you can also use the hands-free function just by kicking up underneath of the bumper here. And as typical with Mercedes, it works really flawlessly. You don't have to worry about it not working, the hands-free function. Now, as far as the specs are concerned for the cargo area of the EQB, like I mentioned in the rear seat area, Mercedes-Benz has not finalized the specs, so we don't have the exact cubic foot measure for this EQB. That said, we do have the GLB's figure, and just eyeballing it, I don't think it looks that much smaller. It might be a little bit smaller than the GLB. If I had to guess, it would be a little smaller. But for reference, the GLB is sitting at around 24 cubic feet of cargo capacity behind the second row seats and expands up to 56 cubic feet. So I'd say you're probably looking around 20 cubic feet behind the second row, and a maximum of around 50 cubic feet is my best guess. That said, it's not confirmed any of those figures or anything like that. Now, as far as some of the finishings Mercedes has included, we do have a cargo cover right here. I want to point out that the seats do fold 40-20-40 split, which is a nice feature. It helps maximize the seating capacity with long objects in the rear. We also have some LED illumination on the left side, a little net, 12-volt power outlet, and then if we lift up the cargo floor, see what we have included under here. You do have a little bit of additional space. I assume this would be enough for something like a charger in the cargo area. Now, this is an electric SUV, so you might be curious on if you have a frunk in the EQB. The answer to that is going to be unfortunately not. As you can see, there's a lot of different components going on in here. It pretty much just looks like an engine, except without, of course, a lot of those components. I would love to have seen a frunk included on the EQB, so maybe Mercedes in the future will be able to kind of consolidate all this stuff and maybe include a small frunk for everyday items like the charger to be stored. Now, your passenger seat on this particular tester is going to be manually adjusting. I still find it kind of funny that Mercedes-Benz has a manually adjusting seat. They do give you a little bit of a credit for that, though. Now, as far as some of the features in front of us with our glove box, look how big this glove box is. This is definitely unchanged from the regular GLB, so you can tell we have a ton of space in here. It's not felt lined, but it absolutely just swallows up our coupon. So we're going to switch it up today, and we're going to be heading to Culver's 2 for $8 double deluxe butter burgers. That sounds pretty darn good. As you can see, you can fit that in there, no problem whatsoever, and you're going to be saving money on fuel to even get to Culver's. Then up top, we have a sun visor, we have LED illumination, a mirror, as well as the ability to detach it. No extension, though.
All right, and that is 60 miles per hour in the EQB 300.
Nice.
So, yeah, pretty nice and strong. The power number for this version is going to be 225 horsepower, 288 pound-feet of torque. So, like you can tell, that's pretty good amount of power. It's not going to blow you away. This is not a Tesla Model S Plaid. You know, the point of this is an everyday driver, and you know, they're emphasizing range over top of the maximum most performance, and there might be, you know, maybe an AMG version or something added later on if you're interested in that type of performance, but definitely feels more than adequate. And a lot of customers for this are probably going to be coming from a GLB or a GLC, and compared to a gas 4-cylinder engine, you know, you have a lot of torque. It really comes on strong, and it's going to feel very powerful, I think, compared to that standard motor in the GLB.
Yeah. Now, of course, there are two different other powertrain options, I guess you could say. The GLB, or EQB, we've been doing all types of Mercedes. There's a lot of letters flying around. The EQB 250 is the base version. That's going to have 188 horsepower and 284 pound-feet of torque. So you are losing quite a bit of horsepower for that model. It's going to be under 200 horsepower, so we expect that to be relatively slowish. But, of course, it does still have a lot of torque. So like Drew was mentioning, the torque figure is something you really feel when you get behind the wheel of one of these new electric vehicles. Now, they do also offer a 350, which is on the higher end than this particular 300 model, and that's going to have 288 horsepower, so almost 300 horsepower, and 384 pound-feet of torque. So that's going to be pretty powerful. And like Drew said, Mercedes loves AMGing all their cars, so I imagine there might be an EQB AMG offered in the future if you want even more power than that.
For sure.
Now, if you're curious about a 0 to 60 for the 250 model, we do have that figure. It's going to be 8 seconds. So I assume for this 300 model, we're probably looking at maybe... What do you think? 6...
I'm thinking
7...
6.5.
6.5 to 7.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a lot of cars. It feels
pretty quick.
Below 7, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was from a full stop. Yeah, and particularly getting off the line, this feels pretty quick. Like I said, compared to your GLB 250, you're going to be very happy with this power, I'm sure.
Now, like I mentioned on the outside of the vehicle, as far as some of the technical components of what makes up this powertrain setup, you're looking at a 66.5 kilowatt hour battery pack. You have front motors for the 250 model, so that's going to be a front wheel drive version. For the 300 and 350, you're going to have dual motors, so front and rear, so you're going to have the all-wheel drive for those models.
Which you could tell when I took off, you can put all that torque down very easily with the all-wheel drive system.
And as far as the range is concerned, we're looking at 243 miles for this EQB 300, which I imagine this will be the most popular version of the EQB. Like I mentioned, there is that 250 model, which one can assume will have better range than this 300.
Right. At the time of this filming, we don't have the range for that 250 plus model, but it is going to be the highest range model. And at 243 miles, that's already a pretty compelling number for the range. Nice and competitive. Definitely can fulfill your needs on your day-to-day basis, and even some longer road trips. And speaking of kind of going on a longer road trip, I do want to go ahead and mention the fact that you've got 2 years of free 30-minute charge sessions at Electrify America stations. So that, of course, is outside of Tesla Supercharged, which is proprietary at the time of this video. Electrify America is the most common type of charging station all throughout, and you will be able to go on road trips and charge for free for 2 years.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about just how comfortable the vehicle will be for the road trips. It's going to be pretty comfortable. I really don't sense any differences from this EQB versus the GLB. We actually just did a video on that not long ago at all, so I can have a unique reference point of discussing between the two. I think they feel very, very similar just cruising down the highway. It's pretty comfortable in terms of the overall ride. I'll say the same thing that I did for the GLB review, though. The seats are kind of hard. Mercedes really likes some stiff seats. Maybe that's your forte, but here in the front, they're pretty soft, but the back, it gets pretty hard. So do keep that in mind. And, I imagine for the larger wheel options, if you get like a 20-inch wheel, it's going to be pretty firm on the ride quality. For a sound level reading going 55 miles an hour, we're looking at 56.8 decibels. That's pretty solid. I don't remember what the GLB tested at. I do believe it was something pretty similar to that, but you can't expect that this would be a little quieter than the GLB because there is no engine in the background. You're just going to have the road noise.
Exactly, that is correct. Plus, it is a pretty windy day today as well.
Now, I do want to go ahead and mention our airball and slam dunk for today. I'll kick us off by saying the slam dunk, which would just be the functionality of this EQB. I really think this vehicle's strongest point is that, honestly, if you just threw me into the inside of this cabin and I wasn't really listening for the engine, I would just think I'm in a GLB. And that's really a good thing for a lot of electric vehicles. If you're coming from a GLB or a regular gas-powered model, you're not going to have any issues hopping into this EQB it's not going to be like a spaceship like a
Right.
Tesla Model Y.
There's
And you
just
have a lot of functionality too.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just a lot of competitors that they're just kind of doing weird and funky things just for the sake of being weird and funky. And I just kind of appreciate that this is something classic. Like you said, you could totally get adapted to this from anything else in the Mercedes lineup super, super easily.
And for our airball, we did struggle a little bit to come up with that today, but we're going to say it's the price of this EQB. It's not exactly a cheap offering. I'll get into the exact specifics of this model in just a second, but you're looking at only a few $1,000s less than a long-range Model Y as tested, and the long-range Model Y is going to have quite a bit more range as standard than this EQB. So, now, that being said, for the 250 model, that does come in actually quite a substantial amount cheaper than a Model Y long range, because now they're only offering that higher tier Model Y. So we're starting at $52,400 for that 250 plus model. The 300 is going to be $54,500, and then you have the 350, which is going to be $58,050. Now, unfortunately, what gets you is pretty much every Mercedes Benz has a lot of options. The EQB is no different. So yeah, we do start at, about $55,000 for this model, but we have a lot of options on here. And all told, with the $1,050 destination, we're looking at $62,185 for this specific EQB 300.
Now, as far as the feel behind the wheel, it is mostly the same as the GLB. It does feel perhaps a little bit heavier, which I think actually makes it feel slightly more balanced. So as you kind of corner, it does feel a little flatter than I remember the GLB being, but like I said, very small difference. And the steering is nice and quick and responsive as well. Now, I do want to also mention regenerative braking. That, of course, is a key part of driving behind the wheel with an electric vehicle. You can hit these paddle shifters. This is going to be able to turn up and down the strength of your regen braking kind of on the fly. We've had it in kind of a low setting so far today, but I pressed the down paddle shifter several times, which has dialed it up to the strongest.
Very heavy.
Yeah, and it really slows this down quite aggressively. So it's really up to whatever your taste is. But overall, we've really enjoyed our time with this EQB. This honestly is just an electric vehicle that is really, really easy to get used to and enjoy. I think that going to be the primary audience for this model is somebody that is, maybe looking at that traditional GLB and is ready to make that first step towards an all-electric future. And when you choose to have this model, you're going to get, advantages and performance. You still have the same space, the same cabin. It doesn't cost too much more than that traditional GLB. And all in all, I think that this is really a strong choice when it comes to an electric luxury crossover.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us on this in-depth look at the all-new 2022 Mercedes-Benz EQB 300. So one of the first reviews of this all-new electric EQB. So if you enjoyed watching, please hit that subscribe button down below. Help pay us back. Also follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and visit our merch store for all types of different products available for purchase. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.